If you've been told that tight hip flexors is holding back your squat mobility, then in this video you're going to learn why psoas stretchers won't help your squat and an exercise that actually will. Yo, what's up? Coach E here from Precision Movement, and today we're going to talk about the squat. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've heard this before where somebody has mentioned to me, or I've just overheard people talking in the gym, that they can't squat low because they have tight hip flexors. And every time I hear this, it kind of gets my blood boiling a little bit, and I feel like it's coming from somebody said this at one point, maybe somebody on YouTube, some kind of fitness expert that's really popular said this, and it's just been parroted over and over and over. So first, we're going to deconstruct why this is a load of crap. And secondly, I'm going to teach you a technique that will actually help you improve your squat mobility because it addresses things in a biomechanical and scientific way. Okay, so let's start with the hip flexors. What are the hip flexors? Typically, iliopsoas, that's the single joint hip flexor. Rectus femoris, that's the two joint hip flexor that crosses the hips and the knees. That's part of the quadriceps. Okay, let's focus on the iliopsoas because that's what most people think of when they say hip flexors. So tight hip flexors. If I have tight hip flexors, what kind of mobility is that going to limit me from? So the hip flexors run in front, and let's say they're tight. So they're tight, they're contracted, they're going to put me into this position already, okay? To lengthen the hip flexors requires me to go into hip extension. That's lengthening of the hip flexors. So if they're tight, that movement and that range is going to be limited. Are people limited in that range when it comes to the squat mobility and squat mobility? No. People, when they talk about squat mobility and their mobility being limited, it's going down. Oh, I can only squat to here. I got tight hip flexors. Well, you can see right now, very simple explanation, that when we're going into a squat, the hip flexors are shortening. Okay? So if they're tight and they're shortening, the hip flexors are not limiting squat mobility or squat depth. Okay, can you see that very clearly? All right, so this myth or whatever it is that is out there, just if you hear it, just block it out. Okay, it's not real, it's a load of crap. What is actually happening when it comes to the hip flexors, and do the hip flexors impact squat mobility? The answer to that is yes, they definitely do impact squat mobility, but it's not what you think. Okay, I hate using that term, it's such a marketing term. Anyway, hip flexors. When you go down into the squat, the hip flexors actually have to be on. The reason why they have to be on is they cross both the hip joint to create hip flexion, but the psoas inserts or it originates on the lumbar spine. And when you're going deeper into the squat, if the psoas is not firing correctly, or it's weak, or just doesn't have activation at the shortened range, then what happens to the lumbar spine is you lose that lumbar extension, okay? So the psoas helps maintain a neutral or extended lumbar spine as you descend into a squat, okay? If my psoas isn't working, I get the butt wink. Another myth, I've talked about this before in a previous video, butt wink is not caused by tight hamstrings. It is more a function of iliopsoas, particularly the psoas that doesn't work properly, okay? Now, when is this muscle not working properly? If you could do this, your psoas is working, but it's not working properly when it's at its shortened range. Okay, this is the psoas at its shortened range. And if it's not able to fire, then you're not able to keep this lumbar extension, and you're gonna either go into butt wink or you're just gonna be stuck in this, kind of partial squat position, okay? So how do we train it to get it functioning properly, and not just the iliopsoas and the hip flexors, but the hips in general? How do we get them working properly when we're in this deepened bottom of the squat range? Well, we train it there. How are we going to train it there? That's what I'm going to show you right now. Okay, so We're going to go through an end range expansion technique, ERE. This is step 3 in my 4-step process to improving mobility and movement longevity that I teach in all my control courses, and I'm going to teach you it right now. So this is a level 2 ERE. Level 2 is just a little upgrade from level 1. Okay, we add some more contractions, and there's just a little more to think about. So this is a progression, but I'm going to share it with you now because I think you'll get it. So for this technique, I call it the unilateral deep squat level 2 ERE. It's a mouthful, I know, I'm sorry, but I like to be accurate. What we're going to do is we're getting into this half kneeling position. So if you can imagine, this is like what your squat looks like, okay, at the bottom of the squat. What we want to do is train the range where you have just at the bottom of the range that you have where you can maintain a good neutral spine. So let's say you're squatting and you could squat down to here well, and then once you go below that, it gets a little flexy and ugly, okay? That's kind of the hip range that you want to train. So you want to be maybe around there, okay? If you can go deeper, what you can do is spread out and train the deeper position here, okay? So now it's more hip flexion, so I'm working an even lower squat, all right? So let me show you this angle. What you do is you find that position, that's first, find that position. Get the knee on the mat so I don't irritate my patella. So let's say I'm training right here. Level 2 ERE. First, what I want to do is I want to get there, chill out for a bit. I'm going to put my hands on the ground. We'll stare at my balding spot. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold myself in position, so maintaining as best as I can a neutral spine, good squat spine position. And then I'm going to lift that foot off the ground and hold it, and I'm lifting hard, keeping the chest up, lifting as hard as I can, and relax down slowly. That's the first contraction. Then you go right into hands off the ground and just holding myself balanced. So now I'm activating the extensors as if I'm pushing off the bottom, off the floor to go back up, okay? Hold for one slow 360 breath. Okay, now hand on the outside of the knee. Push. Activate, gradually increase the activation as hard as you can without pulling anything. Once you're at max activation, hold it there. And for one slow 360 breath. I'm working here, I'm pushing my knee and I'm not letting my hand push my knee. Okay, and then come inside, elbow, push. So I'm pushing my knee out and I'm pushing my elbow back in. So I'm activating the adductors. Max contraction, one slow 360 breath. Keep activating. This is work. I'm not just resting here. Gradually release the contraction, and then we go back into lifting the foot off the ground. Okay, lift it. Keep trying to drive that knee to the ceiling. Slow 360 breath. And relax gradually. Okay? So that is one cycle on this left side. All right? Let's go through the right side. So I'm going to show you this angle here, side view. So first, I find that deep squat position. So if you can imagine, that's my squat there. Let's say I'm right here, I'm working. Mimic that with the one side only. Okay, first move. Now, if you need to put something on the ground, maybe some kettlebells or something to hold on to, dumbbells or a little chair, stool, that would be good as well. But you can go down. It's just you're gonna lose perfect neutral throughout your whole spine. Key is to maintain as much as you can in the lumbar. Okay, so first contraction. We gradually increase the activation, hold it there, slow 360 breath, gradually decrease the activation. Okay, ready, set, go. Lift the foot. Strong contraction. Bring it down slow, under control. And then no hands, just hold it there. Think of pushing up through the floor like you're squatting, coming up from the bottom. Hold, breathe. and relax. Now, push the knee in and resist. Don't let the knee actually move, but strong contraction from the arm. Breathe. Causes reflexive contraction of the hip, the abductors, and then adductors. Drive it out. Strong contraction. Breathe. And relax, and then one more, lifting up. Activate those hip flexors as hard as you can. Place it down slow, under control, and then drive yourself out of that position. Okay? That's how you improve squat mobility. Not these stupid hip flexor stretches that is stretching something that doesn't need to be stretched. We need to work on the strength at that shortened range of the hip flexors, not stretching the hip flexors out, all this kind of thing, all right? That's how you're gonna improve squat mobility if you believe that biomechanics is a thing. If you don't, then you can do whatever you want, okay? There you have it. Hope that helps to clear up something that you may have heard. If you haven't heard it, great. You've just programmed your brain with some useful actual information. But if you have heard that, consider your source, and maybe you don't want to listen to that source too much because it might just be a little bit of a parrot pollywanning a cracker in your ear, okay? Hope that helps. If you enjoyed that, subscribe. And if you want to work these hips properly, scientifically, biomechanically, then you got any problems, lacking mobility, or your hips just don't work the way that you know they should, then I suggest you check out my hip control course, which I'll link at the end of this video. Okay? Thanks for watching again, and I will see you next time. Peace.